He has expressed that UNESCO saying, which is everything starts in the mind and consciousness and awareness. Decisions for war, decisions for conflict, decisions to make a business, decisions to take a profession, to do something, all happens in the mind, all happens in consciousness. And we understand consciousness, not just human consciousness, but as a field that actually, again, manifests in different values. As you will hear, Dr. Hagelin, a great scientist, will express how this concept of field is and the different layers of expressions, just to give us an idea of how it works. So, how it works is on the basis of enlivening something, which is the basis of everything, the field of consciousness. And that in the Vedic literature is beautifully expressed in Vedantic terms, and the fact that the field of consciousness is Satchit Ananda, that we are all that everything is that, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahm, Vedoham, and all of these values that are expressed, Aham Brahmasmi, are a reality in the scientific understanding today. I've had the chance and the fortune to work under Maharishi's guidance on showing, for example, how Veda and Vedic literature are actually the blueprint of our own human physiology, which means even the physical reality of our body is constructed according to the structure and function of Veda and Vedic literature. This is a huge topic, but it's very dear to my heart. I can't miss the occasion to express it to you, because it also demonstrates the profound relationship between consciousness as experienced by the rishis, and this is the Veda and the Vedic literature, and our even human body is constructed according to that, which means the shlokas, the mantras, the sutras, all of these are actually available in a physical form in our own body from its source, and therefore create an effect that is non-local. Because that's the main key. How can people somewhere create an effect everywhere? And that is because of non-locality. And science, physics has discovered non-locality, because in quantum mechanics, we know that things interact with each other at infinite distances, and that is called entanglement. We know that in the fine aspect of quantum mechanics, there is non-locality, and that is objects can be in different places at the same time. All of this is mind-boggling when we think about it from a classical perspective, but it is real. It is what science has discovered. And therefore, non-locality, action at a distance, is something physical, something that we know exists if you act from a deep level of understanding, a deep level of life. And therefore, what we are doing is acting from these deep levels. Since everything comes from that unified field, the field of consciousness, and since we as human beings have the capacity, because our physiology, our mind, our consciousness are already constructed according to the laws of nature, according to Veda, we are able to transcend, which means we are able to go beyond the surface value and go to the deepest level of our existence and the existence of everything in the universe. And that go there, we are able to create an effect that is, again, non-local and acting at a distance. Now, this is the basic idea of how it works, and the main thing is that it works. And this is what we have tried several times. In science, you have to repeat the experiment. For something to be scientific, it has to be reliable, it has to be repeatable, and it has to be systematic. Systematic means you do it in a system, in a specific way. Reliable means when you do it in that specific way, it produces the effect. And repeatable is that it doesn't produce the effect only once, you keep doing it and it keeps producing the effect. These are the fundamentals of science. So what Maharishi Maheshwari has given us is a system that is systematic. The teaching of how to go beyond the surface value to the field, to the depths of the field, is very systematic, and we have hundreds, thousands, many thousands of teachers around the world, and many millions who practice this technology of transcending, of transcendental consciousness, that are taught in the same systematic way, and their effects are very systematic and very reliable and very repeatable. They lead to great improvements in human mind, more creativity, more intelligence, ability for students to have better grades at school, they have better health, reduction in bad habits, ability to feel healthy and happy, reduction in disease, reduction in hospital admissions, at the same time improved behavior, improved relationships, and also what we have seen beyond that, the effect on the whole society, which is our interest and concern really right now for the 10,000 group. Study this scientifically, and in terms of group practice, you will hear more about how it works in coherence of the brain and in how brain coherence can spread to different individuals in what is now a very new and important science, which is called collective neuroscience. And all of these factors is actually being tested. All of these scientifically tested, repeatable, as we said, technologies have been tried again and again on a social level. The way it worked out is in the early 70s, Maharishi was teaching transcendental meditation in the world, and it was discovered that when 1% of the people in any town or city practiced transcendental meditation, the crime was reduced in those cities and towns. So Maharishi had predicted that. That's why we call that the 1% effect or the Maharishi effect, the effect predicted by Maharishi, where a small number of people can create an effect in the whole society. As the knowledge advanced, Maharishi brought to light more deep knowledge of transcending, and not only to transcend, which means if the mind is like an ocean, you dive deep into the self, so your mind is expanded, you have thoughts on the surface. Transcending means to go beyond the surface and go to the ocean itself, again that we're calling the field, go to the essence of reality, to this field of being, which is pure consciousness. Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi, together. But that is described by Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras, but people have lost the knowledge of how to do it. And Maharishi brought this back to light into exactly how to practice samyama and enliven the field in a direct way. So not just go to the field, but stir the field, activate the field of consciousness from a profound way. So when he brought this knowledge and people started to do it, we found a new phenomenon, which is what we are demonstrating in Hyderabad, and that is when the square root of 1% of the population practices these advanced techniques of the cities, which include yogic flying, which means the body actually lifts in the air and of course drops back, as long as you're not, at a certain stage of development. That's why when these 10,000 will come, we'll have forms, so when they fall back, they don't hurt themselves. And so they will be practicing these siddhis. The siddhi means perfection from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And they will be stirring the field, not only transcending, which is already a very important aspect and can have an effect, but if you transcend and act from that level, create an effect, a ripple from that level, then you have a powerful effect. And the scientists have looked, we have all looked, I've done myself some research on that, participated in the research, had the fortune to do that in different places, and found that the formula is the square root of 1% of the population. So if you have a population of, let's say, 4 million people, the square root of 1% of that is 200 people. If the population is 8.1 billion, as is the population of our world, then 1% of that is 81 million, and the square root of 1% of that is 9,000 people. So 9,000 people should be enough to create the effect. Now you add a little safety factor of about 1,000 people, because maybe some will not have slept in the night, they come to program, they fall asleep, which is natural, that can happen. Hopefully they will all be lively and will be flying in the air and create the effect. And so this is how actually it works. That is why we have this number, and that is why we expect the effect to be worldwide, because it's the square root of 1% of the entire world population. So we're really sticking our neck in that one. You know, it's like we're talking about something and we're walking the walk. And we're telling you already that we expect something very positive to happen. So I said there are two things. How does it work? We discussed that. Does it work? We have tried it many times, and we will hear from our colleagues, other scientists, of the road, and therefore this is truly a very profound positive effect. That is the blessings of the Vedic tradition, and we are all blessed, and as scientists, you know, we realize and we pay homage to all of you, we pay homage to Bharat for, this is your knowledge, this is the knowledge of Bharat, but it's a knowledge that is universal, that creates the effects universally everywhere, and when the numbers are right, when the practice is correct, then we have the results as expected. And one question I'm sure that will come, what do you expect will happen in the world? And I apprehend this question and I answer it right away. We expect positivity, some kind of softening, cooling, and positivity in the world. Exactly how nature works, how the positivity will be manifesting, in what part of the world, we are, as much as all of you, hopefully waiting to see, and we will just watch, and the scientists will be there in an unbiased way, not expecting anything, just checking what happens and comparing how the numbers of people flying together compare to the changes on a day-to-day basis. Now, as a group, hopefully this knowledge will be picked up, and we have great hopes that in India today there is great interest, and Bharat India will hold together the groups and create groups like that and maintain them permanently for all life on Earth to be continuously in a progressive, holistic, and coherent way. So thank you for being here again. And
to play a video recording that describes several previous peace-creating assemblies and also explains how it is possible that such an assembly in Hyderabad can create a very powerful peace-creating and coherence-creating influence. The speaker on the video is Dr. John Hagelin. He cannot join today, but he recorded that video especially for this press conference. And Dr. John Hagelin is now currently in Fairfield, Iowa, and he is a world-renowned physicist and a well-published, power-trained, also quantum physicist. He's the president of Maharishi International University, and he's also the international president of the Global Union of Scientists for Peace. Dr. Hagelin is one of the foremost researchers on the peace-creating effects of large groups practicing transcendental meditation and advanced techniques. Dr. Hagelin organized a massive experiment in the USA with 4,000 peace creators from around the world. And this assembly was taking place in Washington, D.C. in summer 1993. He was telling us about the extraordinary results of that experiment and of another experiment the Maharishi effect is creating. And he will explain also the Maharishi effect to you. And please go ahead and play the video recording.
Or consciousness-based approach to peace has been endorsed and embraced by the Global Union of Scientists for Peace as the most effective non-violent means of conflict resolution. According to scholars in the field of conflict, the first stage in the emergence of war is mounting tensions among rival factions in critical hotspots around the world, such as the Middle East. If these tensions continue to mount unchecked, they inevitably erupt as social violence, terrorism, and war. What is the normal approach of dealing with this issue? Well, we can try to reduce the stress, reduce the tensions. That means eliminating factors like poverty, oppression, injustice, hatred, bigotry. We all know that's not easy. Alternatively, we can reduce the stress. And there are powerful techniques, especially the Transcendental Meditation program, as brought by Maharishi, is a very powerful stress buster. TM markedly reduces individual and societal stress. The Pentagon uses Transcendental Meditation, the Veterans Administration in the US uses Transcendental Meditation to reduce the acute stress of post-traumatic stress disorder. And reduction of stress also leads to reduced crime and antisocial behavior. In this regard, TM works. More interesting, group practice of Transcendental Meditation and its advanced techniques, the TM City program, reduces stress on a societal scale. I'm going to show two quick experiments which are quite important in this field. Firstly, in Washington, D.C., the National Demonstration Project took place in 1993, and 4,000 volunteers gathered from across the world and across the U.S. to practice their TM advanced programs in a group. As that group began to rise in number toward the second half of the month in which the experiment took place, crime dropped markedly. This study was conducted and reviewed by an independent panel of 27 research scientists who collectively agreed with the police department on the data and on the results. The police department was skeptical at first, saying it's going to take 2 feet of snow here in August in order to reduce crime by 25%, which was our expected number, and they were thrilled with the actual results of the experiment, which was highly statistically significant. It's not just crime that changes. The whole atmosphere of the city of Washington changed dramatically. Remember, this is the first term of President Clinton's term in office. He was 6 months into his presidency. The animosity towards him by the Republican-led Senate was so deep that none of President Clinton's cabinet picks, choices, were approved by the Senate. So 6 months into his presidency, there was no government. That changed. In fact, the whole city changed, as described by Sally Quinn, a distinguished columnist in the Washington Post, who said, "What a difference a week makes. The Clinton administration appears to have revived. Washington has relaxed. But such a swift reversal of political fortune is not easy to account for. One can logically wonder whether Clinton really turned things around or if something else is going on." She says, "Somehow, as if magically from heaven, a calm has descended on this city." And it was striking. The gunshots throughout the night stopped, the sirens roaring up and down the streets went quiet, the whole city relaxed. Second study, very important, was done at Maharishi International University in the United States, which has 2 giant golden meditation domes in which large numbers of people gather on a daily basis to practice TM and its advanced techniques. Those numbers rose suddenly in 2006 due to a grant that supported large numbers to come together, over 2,000. As you can see in this next slide, a sharp increase in the number of people that packed those golden domes. As soon as that happened, crime rates throughout the United States began to fall continuously. The result was highly statistically significant. And suddenly, when that group expanded, there was a marked increase in crime levels again across the United States. What was quite remarkable about this was when this happened. During this period of decreasing crime, the stock market crash and the Great Recession of 2008 started. Normally, in a period of deep financial recession and hardship and poverty, crime goes up. In this particular case, even though the situation was very difficult financially, crime was still going down. This was considered particularly remarkable. The Washington Post said, violent crime has plummeted in major cities across the country, a trend criminologists describe as baffling and unexpected. Experts did not see this coming at all. Criminologists had different theories about why crime is down so much, although most now agree that the long-held belief that crime is driven by the economy is false. Also remarkably, during this period, it was not just the murder rate that went down so substantially. All violent crime went down that substantially. All accidents and tragic deaths went down substantially. The economic misery caused by the recession went down substantially, as you can see in this chart. And more tragically, when that group disbanded, all these negative trends went up again. And this demonstrates the need for a permanent group of these meditating experts.
Each column is a second. You're seeing very fast EEG. That's what the brain waves looks like when 150 people are looking at you. And the bottom line is coherence. Notice sometimes this line is at the top, sometimes this line is at the bottom. When the line is at the top, it means that the left and right side of your brain is more holistically functioning. When we see at the bottom, it means that the left together again, it breaks apart. So this is looking at eyes open. So now, Pavani, can you close your eyes, begin your TM practice. This is alpha activity. Notice the coherence at the top. Thank you, Pavani. Now you can stop your meditation practice. Open your eyes when you're comfortable. Notice as our eyes are opening, you see the coherence now becomes very variable. Okay, let's go back and just to see that difference. So look again at the eyes open. That was great, honey. You can sit there for a little more if you want. So again, in the eyes open, what is the state of the brain? The state of the brain is different parts of the brain are functioning separately. It's fragmented processing. And we saw that in terms of the actual frequency of the brainwave is very fast. We see the coherence is going up and down. And again, this is normally what's happening, and for people who don't meditate, that's what their brain is constantly doing. It's one substate after another. So Bernard, if you could go to where she begins her TM practice, and Bhavani can see her brain when she's meditating. Notice the first thing. Notice this transition in brainwaves. It's really a change in state. It's like a switch going on. And the switch is from attention going out to looking at the people, looking at you, to attention going in and just transcending. And giving the brain that state allows that state to begin to be seen more. Later explained, this is common to all people. You can affect the world. What we see here is one person practiced transcendental meditation. Well, next door was a non-meditator. They were doing a concept learning task. And what we found is when the coherence was high in the meditator, the coherence was high in the non-meditator, and they did better in the concept learning task. Another study, we had one person practicing TN 12 times. Unknown to this person, a group of graduate students came in, they either read a textbook or they practiced TN as well. When the group was transcending, was stirring this field of consciousness, what the individual said which in the field isn't live, is more functionally significant. We saw that in the first study, the non-meditator was just more awake, was clearer, and they began to perform better on these tasks. And they were over 77 days, over 2 months. And they range from about 1,500 up to 2,300 people.
India is a very poor country where billions of people are in the state of poverty. You know, this meditation is a subject for affluent, educated, and hardly people are educated. So for a lower strata of society, what is your, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi has got a big name. So I would like to ask you, the people who are right in the downtrodden state, what is your message to them? So that these are all media people, they can write and they can benefit from it. Thank you very much.
Know your name?
I am Sagar.
Great.
Sagar is my surname. You can call me Naresh also.
Okay, so
Naresh becomes a little bigger name, so I don't want to be Naresh.
those are simple. So I'll direct this question to Dr. Neda, who will address this, please.
Thank you for this question.
Thank you.
We would like to clarify that transcendental meditation doesn't require any previous knowledge, philosophy, or background, or science. We have presented the scientific background, which can be complicated in certain ways, physics, quantum mechanics, and because we have to understand the mechanism of action. So, for example, if you want to have light in your room, you can just flip the switch and anybody can do that. We don't have to have any background of any knowledge of how electricity is produced, how it is channeled to your house, and the resistance of the wires and how it is done. So there are two things. There is the theory, the effect, and the study of it, the engineering part. And there is the technical part. That's why we call it technology. It's a technology of consciousness that children, even from the age of 4 or 5, can start practicing. And people with any knowledge, background, or no knowledge, no background at all, can practice it. It's a very simple, innocent technique. And it will enliven creativity and intelligence. And that is why it is very important for everyone to actually use it. There is the Maslow pyramid, Abraham Maslow saying that first you have to look for your food, and then you can think, and then at what point you are able to transcend and have self-actualization. What Maharishi Mahesh Yogi has taught to the world and has shown scientifically is that if you transcend first, which means you go to samadhi first, and this is available to every human being, then your creativity increases, your ability to find ways to gain your livelihood and to be wealthy increases. So you start from the top, enliven your awareness and your consciousness, and that will give you all the power and energy and intelligence to achieve your goals in life.
Thank you, Dr. Neda. पूछना चाहते हैं,
Whatever
हम
you
उसको
told,
ट्रांसलेट कर सकते हैं.
Sir, whatever you said for an educated and those who are, learning physics and other things. I am asking a meditation for a common man. So if you can enlighten me on that subject, I'll be grateful to you.
Yeah. Says yes. Then I say, close the eyes, take this mantra, do it like this, and then do it 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening, and come back and tell me how you feel. And the science shows us that when they come back to tell you, they'll tell you, I am better, I am clearer, I am more intelligent, I am able to fulfill my life. And many would say, transcendental meditation saved my life.
Understanding the close eyes when you're in a room, where being addressed. And the second is the dome science, the meditation in a dome. So do we have a special architectural design on that?
Very, very good question. Dr. Travis?
Just to clarify his first question.
One is open versus the closed eyes. I mean, if I'm listening to you with open eyes and I'm listening to you with closed eyes, suppose I'm in a workshop or something, I'm in a classroom. So what actually would be you suggesting? Like, you do it with the closed eye or the open eye?
Yes.
So I was trying to understand.
Yeah, so why do you close your eyes when you transcend? It's because when your eyes are open, your attention naturally goes out. And what's happening with TM is you're learning how to let the attention settle within. And to reply to the first question, how you do that is by allowing the natural tendency of the mind to take the mind within. The natural tendency of the mind is what you've been experiencing over the last 30 minutes. We've tried to make this very engaging. But your mind has been thinking, what am I going to have for lunch? What am I going to do on the weekend? It's the natural tendency of the mind to look for things which are more pleasing, more attractive. And we use that natural tendency to take the mind within because quieter levels of the mind are fuller, richer, more fulfilling, so the mind will naturally go there. And so we close the eyes just to let the attention turn within. Did that address that part of your question? Thank you.
Actually, architectural design, which is scientific. Yeah. So
Is there a significance of the architectural value of the dome?
That's a good question. Ideally, you would have a building which incorporated the principles of Vastu. And that would be ideal, and we're working on that. Maharishi brought that knowledge out after the domes had been built. But the first part of the question is that the significance of having everyone come together in one place is so you get the group effect of the TM City program. That's where the square root of 1% number comes from, is from group practice. That's why in Hyderabad, people are coming from all over the world to join the group.
It starts at the occipital lobe of the brain because your attention is no more on the outside. It's very rare to find the coherence spreading to the front of the part. So I want to highlight that when the study was done with the young lady, who was picking up on the front of the brain, which doesn't happen except if you really transcend and go down into this settled state of consciousness.
Hello. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Abhi to astrological science and numerology. Basically, sir, I want to know that does reading horoscope regularly in newspaper impact on the consciousness of mind, and regularly reading it translated any connection with the planets?
So very interesting question.
I'll start with that. First, we are intimately connected with the world around us. We're not fragmented individual billiard balls rolling around on a billiard table. We're part of a larger system. Our family system, the system of India, the national system, the system of the world, the system of the galaxy. So we are created. There's some bodies of knowledge that have tried to systematize that. Horoscope from the West is imperfect knowledge. So you can read that, but it's going to be giving you imperfect information. So it's going to be putting things in your mind which may not be accurate. In Vedic tradition, there is a science of Jyotish, which just understands that the fundamental impulses of the Veda, which create the physiology, as Dr. Nader mentioned, also create the world around us. So we can see these patterns in the world around us and understand what's happening inside. So yes, we are part of a larger system. The point about superstition is so important because there's a lot of information out there. And that's why the whole science of consciousness, practice of transcendental meditation, we look at it from the lens of science because we want to separate out just hearsay and opinions to find out what's actually happening.
So that is correct to do, so we have to be careful. That's why we have subjected this technique to rigorous scientific study now for 80 years or so, and therefore repeatedly try to see what works, what doesn't work. And in this case, we have all positive effects and no side effects or problems.
the principle of transcendental meditation is based on simplicity. So it's like when we want to nurture a plant, we just water the roots of the plant. That watering takes care of the flower, the fruit, the leaves, all aspects of the plant. And we just water the plant, water the root. On the other hand, in our lives today, what we try to do is try to polish different aspects which are more outside, which are more material aspects, rather than watering the root. So this technique is based on that simple principle of watering the root, which will nourish all aspects of our life. Just to add on to what the scientists said on the night. Next question, please. Yes.
Meditation. And the other question is there any study that can prove that it can end violence and bring peace in the world?
Yes, there are several studies, and the question is, what is the science behind transcendental meditation, and what do the studies reveal?
We can all speak, but I'd like to ask the Deans who has it.
The point about transcendental meditation is that it is natural. Maharishi describes how the mind has a nature, and the nature of the mind is to wander to an area of greater charm. A big misunderstanding in the field of meditation has been that the mind needs to be controlled. But if we control the mind, it keeps the mind on the surface level. The nature of the mind is to wander to something more blissful. Where is the greatest bliss in the universe? It's in that field of Sat, Chit, Ananda. The word Ananda, absolute bliss consciousness, that is that field of pure consciousness, that unified field that we've been talking about. So transcendental meditation is a simple, natural technique to allow the mind to dive within, under its own nature, to that field of Ananda. So that's the principle of how it works scientifically, based on the nature of the mind. In terms of Dr. Nader's discovery, that consciousness is all that there is, that the misunderstanding has been that the brain creates consciousness. Dr. Nader has brought out that ultimately consciousness is fundamental and consciousness creates the brain. And that's the area of research that's really going on at the moment, is to understand those mechanics.
Exactly does one perform transcendental meditation? What is the process? Since you said even a 4-year-old child can do it, and since it's systematic, what is the systematic procedure by which these 10,000 experts will be doing it? What is the process essentially?
It's a very good question. Thank you. Person actually meditate. And the way it's done, it's practiced 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening, sitting comfortably with eyes closed. He made a system which is so robust so that the purity of the knowledge is passed on from the teacher to the person learning in a very, very systematic way, in which the teacher actually doesn't have an input. Whatever he's been trained, so a person becomes a transcendental meditation teacher after going through a rigorous course of 6 months in residence. That's when you become a teacher of transcendental meditation, and you basically become a pipe for the knowledge to flow from the tradition, from the Vedic tradition, to the person who's learning transcendental meditation. And just to answer the second part of your question of what happens or how do people look like when they're meditating, I think we played certain videos right before the conference in which you could see kids sitting with eyes closed and people sitting with eyes closed and meditating. And that is what creates the effect of coherence in the atmosphere. Does that answer your question? Or for that matter, concentrating on anything during meditation. Actually, that's the differentiator of transcendental meditation, that there is no effort involved. There is no concentration involved. There is no focus involved. Because in our life today, when we look at our lives, everything that we're doing, we do with concentration, focus, effort, everything. So if we sit to meditate and if we follow the same process, it is still very outwardly. And in transcendental meditation, what happens is, there is a mantra that is given, there is a technique that is passed, and the technique takes us to this ocean of consciousness which is within us in a very, very natural, effortless way. And that's actually the biggest differentiator of the technique, that it is so simple that a 10-year-old kid can practice it. Clear?
The tendency of the mind. why the mind thinks. It thinks because it's searching for more fulfillment, more happiness, or getting rid of strain, getting rid of things that are limiting. We always want to be more creative. We want more love, we want more happiness, we want better things to hear, better things to think about. You know, if you're reading a book and your eyes are going through the book, but the book is not very interesting, and some music starts next door, your mind suddenly goes to the music, even if your eyes are still going through the words, but you just think you're reading, but your attention has gone to the music because it is more charming. So the shift of attention of the mind from one situation to another happens completely effortlessly. There is no effort when you suddenly find your mind on the music and your intention was to read the book. You didn't do anything. It's just something more charming attracted you. So you go there. So that tendency of the mind is what we use in transcendental meditation. Except usually we are directed to the outward world. We are, through our senses, projects us outside. What we do in transcendental meditation is tell you there is something deeper within you that is more charming than anything you can have, which is your ocean of being, your own inner self. You didn't know that, but that is the reality. And when you dive within, the mind naturally wants to go there. It settles down. Okay, now you say, how does it settle down? Do you force it? The more you try to force it, the less it will do it. The more you try to manipulate it, the less it will go there. So what you learn through transcendental meditation is how to dive without doing anything. It sounds complicated, but it's so simple. That's why Ram said even children learn it and they don't need to have any background of knowledge or philosophy or anything.
Yes, ma'am.
A different mindset, and each mind work in their own accordingly, on other way. So do you really think it will be a very long impact, because the technique, as you told already, that a 4-year kid also can practice it. So I want to know about the lasting period. Do we need to practice it in a frequent way, or because we know as a human we cannot stick to something which will benefit our peace and mental. So we'll of course break that relation. So I just want to know the period of it will last for long, or it will be we have to practice it after a duration of time, each duration of time.
Important, because the brain's a river and not a rock. The brain's a river and not a rock. Everything, you're going to leave here in 30 minutes, you're going to leave the hotel, you're going to see the world as a different place. Because of the knowledge, because of the experience you've had here. This is what the brain is doing every time you have an experience. So what you're doing is you're giving the brain in your 20 minutes of TM a new experience. It's not an experience which is characterized by something, some color, some word, something specific. It's an experience of your universal nature. That you're whole, you're full, you're complete, you're growing. And then you come out and you have that psychological experience, but you've also given the brain a new style of functioning. That is where it's globally awake to every other part of the brain. And what happens is if you meditate in the morning, you'll go out, you'll feel you bring that with you, and then it starts to dissipate throughout the day. For about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, you sit down and meditate again. You reconnect to your inner being, and then it's there throughout the evening. And what happens with this regular twice-a-day experience, you begin to...
has got this message scientifically evaluated. So India is always been in that situation. So I would like to share with all of you that there are thousands of children in schools in India practicing transcendental meditation and TMCT program. So it's already in the system here. Many schools, many thousands of children who are from different strata of the society. We call it Chetana Adharit Shiksha, and through that we are reaching out to the most core young generation of India. As we all know, India is a young country. So in this way we are catering to the most, we can say, the children who Maharishi says are the future of the world.
And others are great leaders in this program, and they have schools and universities starting all over India, they have thousands and soon hundreds of thousands of students. So thank you for being there. We are honored to have you.
So much. And now I'd like to invite Mona to give us a very special message from the ex-Prime Minister of Japan.
To conclude this conference, I would like to send a message, read a message of congratulations from the former Prime Minister of Japan, the Right Honorable Yoki Hatayama. Prime Minister Yoki Hatayama writes, and I quote, Honorable Dr. Tony Neda, Chairman of the Global Union of Scientists for Peace, all the leaders of the world, all the assembly participants, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great honor to address to you a congratulatory message for the 10,000 World Peace Assembly in Kana Shanti, Mayan, Hyderabad, India. I have been advocating the theme of fraternity, which means friendship and love, amongst all the nations of peace and prosperity, for peace and prosperity. I'm impressed by the achievements of Maharishi Yogi to realize global peace through the practice of the transcendental meditation and the TMCD programs, which are verified by solid scientific research. Our work needs a group of at least 9,000 people practicing the transcendental meditation and the TMCD programs. The square root of 1% of the world's population. And under the leadership of Dr. Tony Neda, we are achieving that today. I feel certain that this group will show the way to peace in today's world. And support the creation of a permanent group in the world for fraternity, peace, and prosperity. I thank you all very much for gathering for this noble goal to mankind and been pursuing for thousands of years. Congratulations again. A copy of the letter